I'm Olek Novak, this is Chasing Cars, and today we're going to take a look at what $150,000 of premium electric SUV looks like and whether the Audi Q8 50 e-tron is worth the hefty price tag. Now, the Audi Q8 e-tron has undergone quite a few changes since the model first came out. It's undergone a name change, not only that, but a midlife facelift, and also a bit of a change to its model lineup, which has now been expanded with this base model variant, as well as the SQ8, which has joined the lineup as well. So today we're going to be getting a lay of the land of what's changed with the lineup, where this fits in the Audi lineup more broadly speaking. We're going to check out the interior, we're going to go for a drive, see what this car does well, what it does less well, and importantly, we're also going to go through our range and charging test results of the Audi Q8 50 e-tron to see, can it match its claims?
We're also going to tell you some very important news Audi has released about this model, which raises questions of how long it's actually going to be around for.
But before we do all of that, make sure to hit like, subscribe, and the notification bell below, and follow us on TikTok and Instagram for daily content and behind the scenes videos too. Chasing Cars, honest reviews of your next car.
Brought to you by
So let's get a lay of the land of what's changed with the Audi Q8 e-tron. And the most noticeable thing, the most significant thing over the years that has changed is its name, because when it launched originally, the Audi Q8 e-tron was simply called the Audi e-tron. But over the years, Audi started to use the e-tron nameplate across other vehicles across its lineup. So something had to change to clearly delineate where it sat in the lineup. So they renamed it the Q8 e-tron, and it sits alongside the Q8 petrol variants. And a big part of that was to establish where it sits in the pecking order of Audi's growing electric vehicle lineup. So you've got cars like the Q4 e-tron and the Q6 e-tron SUVs coming out as well. So labeling this the Q8 e-tron clearly establishes where it sits in the pecking order at the top of Audi's electric SUV lineup. Now, we had the facelifted and renamed version launch in Australia last year in one grade, the Q8 55 e-tron, and it was available in both wagon and sportsback body styles. But now Audi has refreshed the lineup and they've discontinued the wagon variant of the 55. Instead, we've got the Q8 50 e-tron wagon, which is the new entry grade in the lineup. The Q8 55 e-tron continues, but it's now sportsback only, and we've also had an SQ8 e-tron performance version, both wagon and sportsback style, launch at the top of the lineup as well. Now, as the new entry grade in the lineup, this vehicle is going to set you back just over $140,000 before on-road costs. So it's actually about a $14,000 cheaper cost of entry to the Q8 e-tron lineup than before, when we had the Q8 55 e-tron as the entry point into the lineup. However, it is worth noting that with this 50 variant, you are getting a smaller battery, a less powerful electric motor, and as a result of that, you're also getting a lower range. So the quoted range figure is 411 kilometers WLTP, but stay tuned later in the video when we go through our range test results to see if we can match it. Now, the test vehicle that we have with us here today is not $140,000, but it's actually $150,000, and that's because it's got quite a few options fitted to it. So let's have a look at those. The first one of those is the paint. So this is a metallic paint, plasma blue. It looks really nice. That's going to set you back an extra $2,300. As well as that, we've got a sports pack, which is going to set you back an extra $5,400, and that brings additions like a lot of gloss black plastic, like mirror caps over here, the roof rails over here as well, and bigger 21-inch wheels. So the regular variant has 20-inch wheels. So that's something to note with the sports pack. When we've also got rear privacy glass over here as well, which is going to set you back an extra $1,000 or thereabouts. So that brings the price up by about 10 grand as well. Now, one thing that is noticeable about the vehicle, or should I say not noticeable that much at all, is the fact that it doesn't really scream about the fact that it is an electric car. So it's going to be up to the Audi train spotters and also the electric car train spotters to notice that this is indeed an electric vehicle, and that might definitely appeal to some people who just want an electric car that looks like a regular car. They don't want to scream about it. Now, overall, the Q8 e-tron, it's got a really nice presence about it, to my eyes at least. It has a typical Audi design, and it's not as ostentatious as something like a competitor, like a BMW iX. And when you're spending 150 grand, that might or might not appeal to some people. But if you want that more dignified kind of look and feel, this is definitely a strong contender. Speaking of contenders, what other vehicles would you be cross-shopping this vehicle against? So we've already mentioned one, the BMW iX. There's also other competitors like the Mercedes-Benz EQE, other competitors from Japan like the Lexus RZ450e, and also other vehicles like the Polestar 3, and also the upcoming Cadillac Lyriq. So let's check out the interior. Now, the more time that I spend in the Audi Q8 E-tron interior, the more I like it. Now, it's interesting because at this price point, you've got a lot of more extroverted competitors like the BMW iX, which we've mentioned, and a lot of cars that go for that maximum showroom appeal of really glitzy interiors. And I feel that the Audi Q8 E-tron goes down a different route. It's comparatively a bit more understated, a bit more functional kind of luxury. So it's not as ostentatious, but it's pretty pragmatic. It's still really luxurious, but in a less shouty kind of extroverted way. It's just more pragmatic, more functional, but inherently it is still ultimately a really premium interior. So let's chat in terms of the seat comfort and the driving position. So that's really nice. You've got a nice steering wheel that fits nicely in the hand in front of you over here. Now, as we've mentioned, we've got the sports pack option. So you get a few extra features with that, including more interior ambient lighting. You've also got Valcona leather interior and front sports seats too. And it's really easy to find a good driving position. You fit in really nicely. The leather feels really nice too. So it's really easy to get comfortable. You've got heated seats for the driver and front passenger as well. Not only that, but you've got electric seats with 2 driver memory settings at the front. You've got lumbar adjustment too. One noticeable absence though is with the steering wheel, it's just manual adjustment, so you don't have electric adjustment or memory settings on this base grade, and you can't get that. So that's a bit disappointing at this price point. Now, in terms of tech and displays, so you've got a really nice 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster in front of you, and Audis really excel at this kind of stuff. It's really simple, it's really clear, it's not overly glitzy, it's quite configurable, it's really easy to see all the dials in all types of lighting, so I'm quite a big fan of these. Now, over to the left of that, you've got a 10.1-inch digital display screen over here as well, and I'm quite a big fan of that as well, because with a lot of these new modern interiors, you've got so many menus, so many options, so much going on the screen. But with the Audi system, it's extremely simple. Essentially, on the main screen, you've got 8 different kind of options here. You can move along to the right for a few extra, but it's all really simply laid out. It's really intuitive, really easy to navigate. You've got nice haptic feedback when you interact with it, and it's just really clean and it's not overwhelming. So I'm quite a big fan of this media system, which just works really well. Now, you do get wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. When you are using Apple CarPlay though, you don't get the haptic feedback that you get when you're interacting with the regular system. Now, you don't get a rotary dial anymore, so you have to just interact with the touch screen to navigate the menus, but that's okay because given the ergonomic layout of the cabin, it's positioned quite nicely, so you don't really need to stretch forward and to interact with it like so. Now, beneath the 10.1-inch screen over here, you've got another screen, and this is an 8.6-inch screen which primarily controls the dual zone climate control and all the climate functions as well. Now, while they are behind a screen, and a lot of people complain about that, I think this is really good because they're visible all the time. So they're always there, the buttons are big, it's really clear, really legible, and really nice and easy to interact with. So as a climate system, I was quite a big fan of this as well. Now, what about the rest of the cabin in terms of ergonomics and storage? So you've got a decently sized glove box over here as well as that you've got a open section over here which has a wireless phone charger, so you can clip your phone into place kind of vertically on its side in there. It's quite a deep cubby. You've got some cup holders in there. You can also open this section here to reveal some lollies and some extra storage space there that you can close up too. And ergonomically, it's just a really nice cabin. So for example, you've also got Audi's new style gear shifter, which some people have said is a bit weird, but I actually really like it because you can toggle between park, drive and reverse very easily. But also you've got this section here that just really nice to rest your hand on. So I've been using that quite a lot. Just ergonomically, it feels quite good. As well as that, you've got another storage section over here between the steering wheel and the driver door. So that's actually quite decently large and it's lined as well. So that's a good storage space. And then you've got some door bins over here. So it's a bit more plasticky down here. So that's just one thing to bear in mind. But overall, in terms of the cabin ambience, as I mentioned, functional, pragmatic, but solid build quality. It all feels really good, really well screwed together. The doors have a good quality German thunk to them as well, and it just feels really well insulated too, which you'll find out when we go for a drive a bit about just how refined the drive experience is. Now, before we check out the rear seats, let's just chat about a few of the items that you can't get on this base model Q850 E-tron. It is 150 grand, but there are still some items that you either need to option or that you flat out can't get. So it's well worth considering that before you determine whether you get the base model or whether it's worth stepping up to the 5.5 Sportsback or the SQ8. So let's check out those items. Now that includes features like Matrix LED headlights and a panoramic glass sunroof, which are both an extra $3,300 and $3,400 respectively, but both are standard on the SQ8 E-tron. Privacy glass, which is essentially dark tinted rear and rear side windows, is also standard on the SQ8, but as we've mentioned, it's an extra $1,050 on this variant here. A Bang & Olufsen sound system is also an extra $1,750 too. And then features like the power steering wheel, heated rear outboard seats, and 4-zone climate control, which you can't get on the Q850 E-tron full stop. The rear seat experience is also pretty decent. So let's chat space first. So for me, at 183 centimeters tall, I've got good headroom, I've got good leg room, tow room is okay as well, and the seats are actually really quite comfy, at least these outboard seats over here, because the middle seat, it is quite hard and firm in terms of the back. So if you're going to have 5 people in the car all the time, that's just something to consider. Less comfortable in the middle, but in terms of the outboard seats, it's pretty good. Now you have a low tunnel here, but it's nothing too noticeable. And then in terms of other amenities, so you've got 2 rear air vents. It is a shame that at this price point you don't have that 3rd zone on this grade, but as well as that you have 2 USB-C connections down the bottom, as well as a 12-volt connection there, and you've got 2 map pockets behind the driver and front passenger seat as well. You can fold this section down here to reveal a center armrest that comes with cup holders as well, and as well as that you've got some door bins over here. The cabin plastics potentially not quite as nice here on the door tops as they are at the front, but overall the rear seat experience is pretty good. You've got good forward visibility and the windows are a decent size as well, so it's relatively airy. The fact that you've got a grey roof contrasting to the black interior is a good thing in terms of making it feel a bit lighter inside than it otherwise would be. All right, let's check out the boot space on the Q850 E-tron. We're going to open the electric power tailgate to reveal 569 litres of boot space, so that compares pretty favourably to key competitors like the BMW iX, which has 500 litres, and the Mercedes-Benz EQE, which has 520 litres. Now you can drop the rear seats using these little levers over here quite easily, and if you drop them both down, that's going to reveal 1,637 litres of boot space. Now in terms of other amenities, you've got a few extra little things like these nets over here that separate 2 compartments on either side, so you can put smaller items in there. You've got a cargo net cover that you can tie down just so items don't roll around, and as well as that, you can also open this section over here to reveal a bit more extra storage space underneath, and also a temporary collapsible spare wheel. Now the fact that this vehicle comes with some sort of a spare wheel instead of just a tyre repair kit is a good thing, so well done Audi in that regard. But being an electric car, that's not the only storage space you have, so let's check out an extra little cubby at the front. And being an electric vehicle, you also get a front, so that's going to reveal about another 60 or so litres of space, so not that massive, but at least you've got somewhere to store the charging cables and maybe some smaller items as well. In terms of safety, the Audi Q8 e-tron's original 5-star safety rating from when it was an e-tron in 2019 still holds true. So you've got a 5-star safety rating, and it comes with a whole suite of active and passive safety features. So you've got 8 airbags, adaptive cruise control, autonomous emergency braking, rear cross traffic alert, front and rear parking sensors, a 360 camera, and a lot of other features too. Now in terms of the calibration of the safety features, I found them to be pretty good over my time with the car. The adaptive cruise control worked really well over an extended highway drive, and the driver attention warning system didn't actually ping or notify me at all during my time with the car. So overall, a pretty well calibrated setup, I found, at least on my launch drive. Now the Audi Q850 e-tron is pricey, so it's good that Audi is throwing in a few things free of charge. So you're going to get 6 years of free charging through the ChargeFox Australia network free of charge. Not only that, but you're going to get 6 years of free roadside assistance too. And you're also going to get 6 years of free servicing for the Audi Q8 e-tron as well. Now, service intervals are every 24 months or every 30,000 kilometers. As well as that, in terms of warranty, the Audi Q8 e-tron is covered by Audi's 5-year unlimited kilometer warranty, and the battery is covered by an 8-year 160,000 kilometer warranty too. So how does the Q850 e-tron drive? And does it drive the way you'd expect a $150,000 premium electric SUV to drive? Well, for the most part, it does a pretty good job, and you'd hope so for the price. Okay, so let's break it down in terms of what the Audi does well, what it might do potentially a bit less well. Firstly, in terms of power delivery, so we actually beat the claimed performance figures for the Q8 E-tron in terms of its claimed 6 second 0 to 100 time. We did just sub 6 seconds. And while that isn't a incredibly fast figure, it's still fast enough. And while the vehicle doesn't have that kind of breakneck acceleration of the 3 second kind of times that you get in some other fast, expensive, premium electric SUVs, it's certainly got plenty enough power, and probably more power than anyone would ever really need from their premium SUV. Now, if you're an Audi loyalist who's perhaps transitioning from a internal combustion powered Audi SUV to a electric SUV like the Q8 E-tron, then you'll find it's a pretty natural transition overall. The power delivery, it's really smooth, it's progressive, it just feels really natural, and it's quite easy to modulate in that regard. So in that sense, it's a fine driving experience. But what is perhaps the vehicle's shining light in terms of what it delivers as part of its package is its ride quality. So the Q8 E-tron has adaptive air suspension, and that works really well in just delivering a really high quality compliant ride experience that is really quite absorbent and compliant and takes the worst out of bumps. So I've been driving along a lot of bad Sydney roads as part of my time with the car, deliberately seeking out a lot of potholes, and the Audi just handles some really bad roads with complete aplomb. So it is a really good quality setup, and you'd expect that for the price. You'd expect a really well riding SUV, and the Q8 E-tron does deliver in terms of that regard. Now, you do have different drive modes in the Q8 E-tron, and even when you are in outside of comfort mode and in dynamic mode, for example, and also coupled with the fact that this vehicle has a sports pack, it's got the 21-inch wheels, the ride quality is still good. Naturally, it's a bit firmer, but it's still really good. So that's probably one of the best assets of this vehicle, is just the ride experience that it delivers. But what about the handling? Well, look, it's no hot hatch. It is a big, hefty electric SUV. It weighs 2.5 tons. So this is a hefty beast of a car. Considering that, it does a pretty good job. As I said, it's not a hot hatch, but it delivers pretty decent road holding. There's good grip there. It changes direction in a relatively confidence-inspiring way. So I think for what the vehicle is, the handling package that it delivers is quite good. It feels very planted in whatever scenario you are driving the vehicle. And I think overall the Q8 E-tron does a good job in terms of its ride and handling balance. The steering, it's also a pretty good system. It's quite light, it's direct. Again, it's quite easy to plant the vehicle on the road. And I think for most people, they'll appreciate its lightness and its predictability. So I think in that regard, the Q8 E-tron does quite a good job. Another aspect of the vehicle which is quite good, which I'll ask you to listen out for right now. Can you hear that? Nothing. It's a very quiet, well-insulated car. And I think coupled with the really good ride quality and the quietness of the cabin and how well insulated it is, that just couples together to deliver, just to add to that quite serene ride experience. And again, you'd hope that you'd be getting something like that for 150 grand. And overall, in that regard, the Audi does deliver really well. So that's all quite positive in terms of the drive experience so far. In terms of other elements, the brakes, they also feel quite good underfoot. And again, the vehicle, 2.5 tons, so it's going to need some decent stopping power. They feel pretty good, pretty easy to modulate. You feel quite confident in stopping the vehicle, so that is a good element too. You can use the paddles here behind the steering wheel to shift between different levels of regenerative braking as well. So there are about 3 levels that you can shift through here as well. So that's another element to consider too. But I guess the big thing to consider is, you know, there's a lot in this vehicle. It weighs 2.5 tons. How efficient is it going to be? Because that's a lot of weight to move around, and it's got claims of 411 kilometers WLTP. So how efficient is this beast actually? It's based on a 400 volt architecture as well, so not 800 volts. So how quickly can it charge? So that's another thing to consider. For 150 grand, you're not getting that 800 volt architecture that you are getting on something like an e-tron GT sedan. So we have conducted some in-depth range and charging tests during our time with the vehicle. So let's consider our results and see how efficient this vehicle is.
We conducted our Chasing Cars highway range test, driving a standard 180km loop at highway speeds averaging around 100 kilometers an hour. During our range test, we used 22.2 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, which is slightly better than Audi's efficiency claim. We also delivered a real-world range of 400 kilometers, not far off Audi's 411 kilometer claim. Based on our delivered real-world range, we tested how long it would take to recharge from 50 kilometers to 350 kilometers of highway range using a fast charger, reflecting a road trip. Our result was 30 minutes and 50 seconds of charge time. In terms of urban data, across several days of commuting, we delivered an average urban efficiency of 24.1 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. The big news to consider with the Audi Q8 e-tron, however, is the fact that the brand is considering an early end to production for the entire model lineup. The brand released a statement earlier this month saying they are witnessing a global decline in customer orders in the electric luxury class segment, which affects the Q8 e-tron. So it looks like the model faces an uncertain future.
So those are just my thoughts on the Audi Q8 50 e-tron. Ultimately, it's a pretty compelling all-round vehicle. It delivers a really quality cabin. It's got an understated presence about it, which might appeal to quite a lot of people. It's got a really refined drive experience, and it's very comfortable too. But it is pricey at $150,000. There are some options you need to tick in order to access extra features, and there are some features that you can't access on the base model that you'd need to step up the range to access. So that's a consideration point as well. Also, that $150,000 asking price is something that might just be out of the stratosphere of a lot of everyday Australians. So if you want to access this kind of premium experience, but you can't stretch that far, what other options can you look at? Well, out of left field, we'd actually recommend something like a BMW iX3. Now, the Chasing Cars teams are pretty big fans of that. Now, that's just an example of a good vehicle you could look at if you want that kind of Germanic, quality, stately, luxurious ride experience that delivers a quality ride and handling balance. Granted, it doesn't have the adaptive air suspension of the Q8 50 e-tron. It is in the class below, but it is also 50 grand less, which means that you can also get it below the luxury car tax threshold. And with that, if you get it on a novated lease, you can also unlock additional tax benefits like the fringe benefits tax savings. So if you weigh those things up, that's a pretty good car that you could look to get close-ish to this kind of experience. Ultimately, we are also looking forward to seeing what the Q4 e-tron and the Q6 e-tron are like to drive as well, and whether the Q8 e-tron drive experience, how much of that can filter down the range at those lower price points. But if you do have your mindset of having the top of the range Q8 e-tron style vehicle with the adaptive air suspension, then we'd also recommend you check out if you can get some good deals on the discontinued Q8 55 e-tron wagon as well. But those are just my thoughts on the Q8 50 e-tron, and I'd love to know what you have to think. So let us know in the comment section down below. Would you get this model? Would you get the Sportsback? Would you step up to the SQ8, or would you look at another competitor entirely? And if so, who? Let us know in the comment section. While you're there, make sure to hit like, subscribe, and the notification bell. Follow us on TikTok and Instagram too. And as always, thank you for watching Chasing Cars.